Cyber Uncut. Discover the changing face of business, government and national security as Australia navigates the cyber revolution.
Good afternoon, good evening, no matter what time you're listening to us, you are listening to the Cyber Uncut podcast. My name's David Hollingworth, I'm Deputy Editor of Cyber Daily. I'm joined by my constant companion,
Daniel Croft.
And we have a special guest in the studio today, Rob Dougherty, Senior Journalist with Defence Connect. Now, he's not just barged in to, steal our beer or anything. Not that we're drinking beer, honest, I promise. But we're opening up with discussion about AI, as we often do.
Yep.
And it's a little bit military themed, so we thought we'd get Rob in as a special counsel, as it were. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm pretty good. I feel like maybe I can field a few expert analysis questions.
I'm sure you can. You probably know a lot more about some of what we're going to be talking about than
and then
I
I'll just bluff the ones I don't know.
No. Well, they do now. And Dan, how are you?
I'm good. Tired. Looking forward to the long weekend.
Oh, aren't we all?
What's
Yes.
that shirt you've got there as well? What's that one there?
Oh,
Rob, you asshole.
it may be my band, Large Mirage.
Which you should go and see because they're really, really good. I say in a non-biased way.
And I say in a biased way.
And after that completely non-commercial piece of sponsorship,
I'll pay you later.
Cash money.
More beers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get straight into it. Now, it's one of the reasons I wanted to get you here, Rob, is Ukraine is offering assistance to the Australian military when it comes to a whole mess of things. Drone technology, obviously, and AI research. What can you tell us a bit more about that?
So this is sort of out of the blue because obviously Australia's provided military assistance to Ukraine. We've provided them tanks, with Abrams tanks and different vehicles and
Bushmasters
things.
and such, yeah.
Financial aid, medical aid,
Quite
drones.
a lot too. We're in the
Yeah.
billions of dollars, like outside of NATO countries, like where.
I think we're under 2, so we're not quite US levels, but this is coming the other way. So this is something that the Ukrainian ambassador to Australia, Vasily Murashenko, has basically offered or forecast that Ukrainians have been developing their AI skills. They've been developing their drone making skills.
Obviously, yes.
This is something they can give back to Australia and help us develop those here.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it would be a game changer.
Oh,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've already seen the effect that all that technology has had in the Ukrainian battlefield, where a relatively modest nation is holding off the Russian bear quite handily. And what they're doing with drones is incredible. What are they doing particularly with AI?
With AI, they're looking at, I know that they're moving towards drones that use AI, and basically their targeting is less about getting clearance from personnel. It's able to target independently based on sometimes photo recognition, but also, set category recognition. And I would have thought as well, this is not confirmed, but I would have thought Ukraine would be using AI in some of its strategic decision-making as well.
My understanding is that pretty much all the major militaries around the world, ours included, which may not be a major military, are absolutely looking into how AI can be leveraged on the battlefield. This is something that I've been researching at the moment myself. So if you're unaware, I write a weekly column, more or less weekly column, for Defence Connect, often on geopolitics, but I'm working on one at the moment on how AI is being used by the IDF in the fighting in Gaza. And it's technically impressive, morally grim, if that makes sense. So what the IDF is using a whole mess of different AI systems, facial recognition technology to effectively target Hamas militants. And the issues around this are fascinating because it's restricted tech. It's effectively black box tech.
Yep.
You know, no one using it knows how it's built or how it's work. And certainly the IDF developers who've worked on the large language model and machine learning models, they're not about to say, here's how it works.
Yeah.
So like there's the first issue. There's the fact that they're very proud of their 90% success rate at recognition. Unfortunately, this is a system used to target people and unalive them.
Yeah.
So what about that 10%? I mean, that worries me. Am I right to be worried about that?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to get into my kind of political belief on
Less
this conflict,
politics.
but
Stop being woke.
I don't think 10% is too much of a concern. But I'll leave that there.
Yeah, fair enough.
I would say, just on this point, obviously the Israeli Defense Forces, their MOD develops their own kit, and so there are other countries probably don't have access to this. The Israelis are very good at developing stuff for the IDF. But I would say you have to wonder how they're training this thing in terms of, I know we spoke previously about biases that are going into it.
Yeah.
But in my own experience, we've seen AI developed here for similar purposes, Athena AI being one of them, the more well-known one. And its targeting can pick out people with weapons like rifles. It can pick out that. It can pick out fatigues, different fatigues that people might be wearing.
That's interesting.
Shapes of tanks and things that might be recognisable. And even if someone's surrendering. So if they've got their hands up, you can say this person's surrendering. And so
either
there might be
surrendering or they're throwing a party.
Yeah, and there might be a wave off there that says, don't blow this guy up. You would kind of wonder how they're testing this thing. Are they
because some of the platforms that the IDF are using are the names. There's one that I just find particularly grim. It's called Where's Daddy?
Right.
Yeah, and it tracks and alerts the IDF whenever a Hamas militant returns their home. So a strike could be called in on someone's daddy, even if that child might be in there. They're just like, screw it.
Yeah.
So it's all about principles of proportionality, of targeting, and care of collateral damage. And it's really becoming quite clear that the IDF doesn't care.
What kind of interests me as well is how can this AI be gamed? Like you talk about like people putting their hands up to show like, oh, I'm, all good, don't blow me up. Can that just be used in the same way that, it's a war crime, but you can fake kind of, giving up?
It can. So I actually know a little bit about this from the US tests.
Yeah.
So AI there was originally tested against, I believe, US Marines, could have been Navy SEALs. And the way that they actually gamed camera feed AI was they had one guy who basically wore a cardboard box and approached the camera AI.
I think I know that video game.
Yeah.
And another guy basically stuck bush around him. And so the AI thought he was a tree.
Yeah.
And he just very slowly moved past the sensor.
Who knew the box trick actually worked?
So you could absolutely see, fatigues and all sorts of kind of military garb change to kind of combat, AI detection. Especially if you can understand, your enemy's AI for what they're using it for.
I think the bigger concern is here that a kid with a stick might look similar to a Hamas leader with a rifle.
Yeah.
There's potentially, it's not mature enough to do
before
that,
you get
maybe.
round to toy guns.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Which are common in the Middle East. Very, very common.
Yeah.
Even real guns are somewhat of a cultural item. I mean, I think we've all seen footage of people celebrating a wedding with just blasting an AK into the air.
Yeah.
So it's like a terrorist or celebrating the best day of your life.
His
Who
wedding
knows?
could get a lot less celebratory.
Very less
a lot louder.
celebratory.
And a lot
it's,
louder,
it's fascinating to me because at the moment the Australian military is of course looking at getting AI into the mix.
Yeah.
It's and not just in terms of drones, which of course autonomous drones are very, very important to every military these days, especially Australia, but in the decision-making process and making sense of the mountains of data that the modern battlefield can generate so that an AI can package it up and give recommendations to an officer to then act upon,
Going back to Ukraine, I mean, they've got this perfect testing ground.
Yes.
To really break it down in a quite inhumane way because it is a war. But like this testing ground for this technology, and if we're a beneficiary of this, that's we don't have to. We get the benefits of that testing.
Yeah.
So
There's another I think there's a catch-22 here in that the Israelis are pioneering maybe this technology, some of the advanced stuff. Ukraine is doing a lot in this space, but is there a moral high ground to say we didn't invest in AI? We didn't invest in something that can, help target, military weapons,
make killing more efficient.
But then let's say your AI that's fairly rudimentary that you didn't invest in. If that can't differentiate civilian targets from military, are we still doing the right thing, right? So I think you have to invest in it.
And I think Palmer Luckey's basically already said that the genie's out of the bag. Any military that isn't relying upon AI in some form is just simply a lesser military. And unfortunately, I think he's right.
Yeah.
Now, moving on from the ADF and Gaza, we're going to go back to Ukraine because this one's I'm going to get you to start off with this one,
Yeah.
Dan. Give us the basics, and then we'll throw to our tame Russian aircraft expert.
I think Dan is our Russian aircraft.
no.
That was a great article. I thought that was
very
really
much.
good.
All right, so okay, Ukraine. So Ukraine's been doing a lot of incredible things recently. Blowing up nuclear bombers in Siberia, which is remarkable.
The footage.
But this is a cyber attack, and I think this is fascinating. Walk us through it, Dan.
Yeah, so we've seen a number of cyber attacks just throughout this conflict. Tit for tat between Ukraine and Russia.
Yep.
This latest one, though, the Ukraine Ministry of Defense's main intelligence directorate, say that 5 times fast, the GUR.
Not the GRU. That's a very different one. Yes.
Yeah. GUR claimed a cyber attack on the Tupolev division of the United Aircraft Company. So this is pretty much the kind of the developer of Russia's, I guess, latest, if you could call it latest.
Well, they've been in operation
nuclear
since
bomber.
World War II, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the original company was this. The United Air Corp is a state-owned.
Yeah.
And they're sort of a conglomeration of all those companies, basically.
Yeah.
But the original company, Tupolev, would have competed against other.
Yeah.
And so what did Ukraine get from this?
So they say they've got 4.4 gigs of classified information. So company personnel, engineer and designer resumes, meeting minutes, procurement documents, and internal comms, including like company management stuff. And the way they've worded this is that there is now virtually nothing secret left in Tupolev's operations as far as Ukrainian intelligence is concerned. So, of course, they're going to kind of like.
Of course,
what
I'm
they've
pretty
done.
sure there's probably more than 4.8 gigabytes of data somewhere on
4.4.
Tupolev. Yeah, sorry, 4.4 data on Tupolev servers, but maybe they already got that.
Yeah. So, like, as I discovered today, Tupolev, their big kind of thing that they're doing at the moment is the Tu-160M White Swan, big nuclear bomber. So to have a cyber attack on,
effectively. So this is interesting because on the one hand, we've got a kinetic strike against the actual bomber fleet.
Yes.
And now we have a hack on the company making those bombers.
Yeah.
So these bombers, like, how important are they to the Russian doctrine and strategy?
So there's two aspects to this that I think is really interesting. Importance-wise for the fleet, these Tu-160s they probably have about 20. They're supersonic strategic bombers, so they're made for delivering nukes and other cruise missiles and things. So they're very important there. Strategically wise, this is like the equivalent, not of a nuclear submarine, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
And so they're a big part of that Air Force. And I think original estimates, from the bombings of Ukraine, the planes that were taken out there, they're talking about 36% of 36% of the Russian aircraft capability is gone there. But anyway, the Tu-160s are almost a pet project for Putin as well.
You were telling me this.
Yeah, so he has flown one previously in 2000.
So it's a bit of a vanity project.
Yeah, and I mean,
They're
they're
psychological play.
Yeah.
They're originally developed in Soviet Union. Soviet Union falls. These things are still around. And he flies one in 2000. He personally restarts their production and modernization, 2015.
Yeah.
And he's flown another one last year in February.
Yeah.
And so the Tu-60, which they call the White Swan there, it's called Blackjack under NATO, but this is quite a significant aircraft. It's probably one of the most significant you can get in Russia. Yeah.
And so they've both bombed them and hacked them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty coordinated.
And they've fully played, full ball on this. They defaced the website as well on Victory Day.
Yeah. So the screenshots we've seen, Daniel and I were going through this today. It's clear that the Tupolev website at the time had up an entire banner celebrating Victory Day.
Yeah.
It was like 45 to 2025, 50 years of so many years,
80
years.
years.
I can count. 80 years of victory. And there's this defacement, and the defacement's fantastic because it's this image of this very, very angry owl.
Yeah.
And the owl is apparently the mascot of this.
Yeah, so it's kind of their
unit?
emblem. On their kind of emblem, they've got the owl wielding a sword. Also, I just want to know, this is still AI relevant because I'm certain that image is AI generated.
Of course it is.
Oh,
I also noticed, and I didn't put this in the article,
Too many talons?
there's a spider web behind it.
Yeah.
And what was the name of the...
Operation Spiderweb.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice
So
that.
I only noticed it then, and I went, of course.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe that's an exclusive if no one's picked that
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
You heard it
here
here
you
first.
did hear it here first.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a hell of a strike, not just against the Russian military, but also it sounds like against Putin himself.
It's a great example of like kind of how kinetic warfare and cyber warfare are getting only more intertwined, and cyber warfare is playing a growing role.
Yeah. Also, that's basically a psyop as well. It's a psychological operation against Putin himself.
Yeah. Well, that's his baby.
You got to respect that.
One of the things with this, with this particular aircraft, and we're talking about, schematics here. If they manage to get schematics, I don't know the value of that, because that information would be public from the Soviet Union. It's probably been leaked out. It might have been leaked out to any computer game.
I'm
War
sure
Thunder.
it's already on War Thunder.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual data there, what can that be used for? If they've got ceiling heights for aircraft, that can help you inform targeting for missile defense.
Interesting.
Stuff.
Yeah.
If they've got speeds, these things can do reportedly Mach 2 and above, which is pretty fast.
For a big bomber.
Yeah, so that can help you inform, your missile speeds that are required. If that's not the case, you can still get valuable information like where the fuel cells are located for future drone strikes.
Yeah.
You can get all this other information. That depends on what they got. We don't know what they got.
And look, if they've got internal messages and stuff, then they've probably got staff directories and that kind of material, which could lead to further downstream hacks and phishing attempts and what have you, targeted at workers at that factory.
Yeah, blackmail. They could use this to get more data. They could use it to, organize. Oh, who do we kill?
It is definitely getting to that stage of things. But yeah, it's. we sat down like, okay, what AI stuff do we have today? We thought about it, we've got a lot, and it's very military. And Rob's like, can I join?
Yeah. Hey, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
But thank you for joining us, Rob. We really, really appreciate it.
Hey, I'll come back on any time you want me back.
Next time Ukraine hacks a Russian nuclear bomber, we'll have you back. All right. Thanks for joining us, Rob.
Thank you.
And we'll go to a short break. And welcome back to the Cyber Uncut podcast. I'm David, he's Dan, and now let's get into the meat of things. Let's talk cyber attacks. And you know how, you might remember if you listened to last week's episode, like, oh man, attacks in Australia are slowing down. Is it a blip? Is it going to be just around the corner? It's just around the corner.
Yeah.
It's been a hell of a week that we're still in the progress of sorting out.
I'm looking at 3 just today.
Yeah, we're not going to name because we're still investigating them, but that's
yeah.
just today.
Yeah.
In the last week, let's see, Rise Racing, which provides software to the Australian harness racing industry. Harness racing, the trots.
Yeah.
Who knew? I'd forgot that was even a thing.
Yeah.
But apparently there is software to be made for it, and these guys got hacked, and they confirmed that with me overnight. Office National, which is a big stationery and office chain. It's basically Officeworks, but not.
Yeah.
One of their, I think this is the case, one of their franchisees got hacked by the Quillen ransomware gang, and a lot of internal data and communications were leaked. But the big one that we reported on the last week, in fact, on Friday, was a Melbourne tax and accounting firm, 3P Corporation.
Yeah.
And this is one that got the entire office a little bit agitated.
Yeah.
Some of our brands are basically all about tax and accounting.
Yeah.
They heard us talking about 3P Corporation, like, oh, can we borrow that? So I send a flash out for that one.
Yeah.
So we wrote it. I think 2 flashes were sent out about it. And what's astounding to me is that we were in contact with 3P Corporation, and they told us that no data was impacted. And from Dan's side, you can probably tell that data was in fact impacted.
Yeah.
Many thousands of 3P Corporation's customers their data was impacted by this incident. Tax file numbers, signatures, banking details. And that's just like the tip of the iceberg. There was quite a lot to go through. And just in the brief, having a look at it to work out, does this belong to 3P Corp or any of its subsidiaries? It absolutely does. So...
Did they get back to you after you published?
No, I was really expecting a very, very angry phone call, but no, because I think they probably very rightly went, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least that's what I'm guessing.
They may have genuinely believed that it's all clear. They may have done their own investigation and determined to know this isn't it. But as you've discovered, it is.
Yeah.
And I really hope that is the case, that they didn't lie, because as we've seen a million times, you lie, it gets found out.
Yeah. And we're absolutely not saying these guys lied. It's
No,
just that
I don't.
They were unaware of what had happened. And, maybe we've helped them to be aware of what happened.
Yeah.
They do need to be working with their customers to secure their data.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was actually a little bit angry about that. It's like, but you have been.
Yeah.
But of course, as we always say, remediating and investigating these incidents is no easy matter. It's entirely possible that they were looking in the wrong spot and thought that they got away clean.
Yeah.
And they very much did not. Now, speaking of the impact of these hacks,
Oh, yeah.
so this is one of my first stories when I started at Momentum and Cyber Daily, which was Cybersecurity Uncut? No, Cybersecurity Connect back then.
Yep.
Was Fire Rescue Victoria suffered a cyber attack which took its systems offline. Folks were using their personal mobiles. No one was put in danger, but it disrupted a lot of their services.
Yeah.
This is back in
It's 2022.
2022.
Mid-December 2022. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd been at Momentum at Cyber for,
Yeah.
I think, 3 months, and you
Yep.
2.
Yeah.
You 2 months.
Exactly.
So
And that
it
was it. And you know what? It's still causing them grief.
I heard this on the radio. I was in the car on Saturday, and it was just, I think it was some community radio station. It might have been Triple M. I don't know. Not community
Old
radio,
school.
but
yes,
yeah,
not
yeah.
community radio. I think it's the opposite of community
Yeah,
radio, but yes.
I was listening to one of those,
Yeah.
and a news report came on saying that Fire Rescue Victoria is still dealing with outages following this 2022 cyber attack. Like, impact is huge, and once again, we have systems down. This has happened for quite a few times in recent months, and staff are having to use their own personal devices and stuff. And these are big systems. It's stuff that tells people, fireys where fire hydrants are. It's stuff that tells them, all right, this incident has occurred, lift the door for the fire truck. Stuff like that drains crucial minutes. And, Fire Rescue Victoria has said, it's okay. There's been no impact to public safety.
Yeah.
However, I forget which publication it was. The Age, I believe it was, pointed out that they've not met their target of 7 minutes for 90% of incidents. So 90% of incidents, they have to be there in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
They haven't met that since mid-2020, early 2021.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's before
That's
the
prior.
incident.
But
in the
surely
incident-
this isn't helping.
No. I think they most recently reported it was like 87%. So they're not that far off.
But still.
But they're still not meeting that target.
Yeah.
And like you said, systems like their station turnout system, which alerts firefighters to an incident and dispatches them, opening doors for fire trucks and more. Firecom is another one, real-time information source that advises firefighters on the emergency. Okay, what kind of extinguishing materials do I need?
Please
things like
state
that.
the nature of your fire
Which,
emergency.
is it an electrical fire?
Yeah,
Things
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
They're down, and that just costs time.
2.5 years later, and it's still impacting them.
Yeah.
That is wild.
But it shows, like, I'm not here to actually bash them as
No.
victims.
As we always say, these are complex incidents.
Yeah. And, maybe they didn't have the protections in place that they needed to, as we saw with M&S and Co-op, the contrast of getting in quickly, preventing ransomware, having things in place creates a much quicker response. These guys may not have had that prep done, and unfortunately, as a result, the impact is much greater.
It's incredible. It just really shows that it doesn't matter what your industry, whether you're public, private, volunteer, charity, whatever, someone's going to look at you and go, yeah, you're a target. And you need to be prioritizing cybersecurity no matter what or who you are. Just look at that list of companies that I talked about earlier. Harness racing software provider, a chain office store, an accounting firm, and Fire Rescue Victoria. I can't think of a more disparate group of organizations, but what they have in common is they hold data, and that means they're a target.
And what this kind of like breadth and variety of kind of industries and organizations shows is that the threat actors are often indiscriminate. They
100%.
don't care
Lowest
whether
hanging
you're
fruit.
saving lives, whether you're selling, something fun. It doesn't matter. If you've got data that's there to be taken and they can make a buck off it, they absolutely will. You know, there is a very real chance, and I'm not going to say this is a definite thing because, this, you know, I of course I'm going to, you know, praise the firefighters who, despite this, are working their hardest. That's still not a bad number for that target. You know, the fact that they are going, yes, I'm pulling out my phone and figuring this out is a testament to them. But just because they're fiery doesn't mean that they're free. They're saving lives, and there's a chance, very real chance, that someone may have died as a result of the limitations that they face because of this cyber attack.
Well, I know it's not in our notes, but it's worth bringing that up because I read new research this week on healthcare and cybersecurity, which is, of course, an absolute minefield. We're talking, you know, hospitals run so much legacy hardware that doesn't talk well to each other. They're usually understaffed, under-resourced, and cybersecurity really isn't what they're thinking about, even though they should be. But more importantly, the data they hold and the processes that they do, and they can easily get disrupted. A good proportion, I think more than 50% of healthcare leaders and professionals around the world believe within the next 5 years we will see a lethal ransomware event that'll lead to, I'm guessing, a surgery going wrong or a patient waiting on a vital procedure not getting their procedure and dying. And when you think about it, we've already seen what happened with Janaea, right? Fertility clinic. And patients had their appointments disrupted.
We've seen this in a wealth of healthcare organizations that have been disrupted in some way. But you're right, like some could be administered the wrong medication. Because the data on what they're allergic to or something is encrypted. It's really scary.
And when you hear it, it's like, oh, that sounds horrible. But then you go, actually, that makes sense. It's we will almost certainly see that in the next 5 years.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
That's going to be a hard thing to report on when it does. I mean, we report on hard stuff as it is, but you know that's going to be, woof.
Yeah, that's going to be really grim.
However, it does seem inevitable. Speaking of inevitable, North Face.
Yeah, this is
puffer jackets, uprace ski, fashionable outdoor gear. I'm pretty sure our beloved boss, Phil Tarrant, might be a fan of North Face. I know he's a fan of puffer jackets.
He loves his, I think it is a North Face, his
God, I hope
puffy
he doesn't listen
vest.
to this. Anyway, maybe edit that bit out.
No.
No, we won't. So they've been hacked again.
Yeah, this is really disappointing. So they reported a credential stuffing incident, small credential stuffing incident. I believe there was some data, not including card data, I believe, like financial data. So it was, shipping addresses, preferences, whatever that means, email addresses, first, last names, date of birth, if you saved it to the account, and telephone number if you saved it to the account. Right? Okay. Bog standard, right?
It's what most people hand over to their loyalty card scheme at the supermarket.
Yeah. Except it is very bog standard for the North Face because it's the fourth one they've had since 2020. And these are credential stuffing incidents.
You know what can stop credential stuffing attacks?
Multi-factor authentication.
Have they turned on multi-factor authentication?
They've got it. They don't enforce it.
They don't enforce it.
So for context, if you don't know what they are, credential stuffing attacks are pretty much this kind of very, very unsophisticated brute force. You get a list that you've gotten from some other source of usernames and passwords. You play on the tendency of people to reuse those usernames and passwords by just running a script that automates them through login pages, and you log into as many accounts as you can.
The attack sounds exactly like it sounds like credential stuffing.
Yeah.
Just stuffing as many credentials into a system as you can, hoping that one or two will work, and that's exactly how it works.
Yeah. And the thing is, like we said, multi-factor authentication, if it sends a text to your phone saying that this has been attempted, particularly in a credential stuffing attack, they're not going to go single out and try and keep logging in. It's the perfect protection.
Yeah.
I have said in the past.
I get them myself.
Me too.
People every now and then try and log into my Microsoft account, but I have MFA turned on. So it's like, that wasn't me. Ignore.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can ignore it.
Yeah.
You know, I did say that on a podcast previously where, you know, great, ignore it. Don't worry about it. You should be, monitoring your passwords and things like that.
You should. And I'm bad with that. Don't do as I do. Just do as I say and change your password and have good password hygiene.
Yeah. But realistically, if you couldn't change your password right there, right then, or you don't have the ability to do that, you can have peace of mind that they can't get in unless they've physically got your device or are able to access, some sort of clone of your OS on your device
and
to verify
SIM swapping can get around that, but that's rarely going to be used in a credential stuffing attack because they're aiming for brute force.
And the thing is, like, they could have your login details to your email. That's another way to do it.
Yeah.
But then if there's a new login, that'll get flagged. You'll see that. There's quite a few barriers that they need to get through that give you an opportunity to stop it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant and simple and awesome. And North Face, enable it, enforce it now, because otherwise this is just going to keep happening.
Who's going to buy your puffy jackets then?
I'm not here to bash a victim. I'm really disappointed at this, though.
I know, it keeps happening. Yeah, it's a problem.
Learn your lesson, please.
Yeah.
The first one, I think in total, before this recent one, 200,000 customers affected.
Yeah.
It's not a small number. Get it together.
Yeah, get it together. That's good advice. And on the back of that good advice, we're going to a short break. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Cyber Uncut. I'm David Hollingworth, Senior Journalist at Cyber Daily. I'm joined by Daniel Croft, my colleague journalist. And how are we going to close this out? Well, we always try and look at a bit of fun one to close things out. And why did my laptop just lock me out? Security, ladies and gentlemen. So CrowdStrike and Microsoft have decided...
Actually, there is one other thing we need to touch on that's quite important.
Okay.
The return of breach forums.
How could I forget?
Yeah.
How could I forget? I was so distracted by Rob's brilliance.
Yeah. So before we get on that, which is the positive one, and we will end on that. So as we reported on a couple months ago or last month or something, breach forums was gone. You know, there was a law enforcement takedown of some kind, and it kind of disappeared. It went under the radar.
Yeah.
Well, it's apparently back. And this seems to be something that Breach Forums does a lot. This will make it version 4 if you go by their naming system. Yeah. So the owner of Breach Forums, the current owner, Shiny Hunters, very prolific hacker.
Depending who you talk to, Shiny Hunters is either an individual or a collective.
Yeah, it varies. I've always referred to as an individual.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people say it's a collective. It's the same. Intel Broker, for example, is I believe an individual, but he has a group which I cannot name because it's got a slur in it.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is very hackery.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Anyway, so Shiny Hunters put up a post saying, we're back. We've completely rebuilt the back end. We did note that there was a day one or a 0-day vulnerability of some kind that allowed law enforcement to take it down. Yeah. And welcome back. It's brand new. Everybody needs to sign up again. Recommended that they use new details.
Like, half of the channels in the forum are currently empty and are slowly populating as hackers come along. The weird thing is, I look at it and like, so when Breach Forums most recently went down, like the then admin warned of Breach Forums clones that were very likely law enforcement honeypots. Yeah. And when you read Shiny Hunter's post on this, you'll need to reapply. Anybody who had VIP rank, contact me. And that's a great way to get, if you've got VIP rank on Breach Forums, that means you're probably pretty prominent in the community. And you're probably a hacker who has done crime. It'd be a great way to get those details. So I'm just like so wary of it.
Because of course, if law enforcement probably has a list of everybody's rank and everything like that. But going, hey, let's start communication with those individuals. It's a great way to kind of get them to give away too much, especially when you know how these guys work.
Yeah. I worry I'm being too paranoid about it, but also, I mean, I wouldn't put it past law enforcement to do exactly that. Well, they have a sense of humor, we know.
Yeah, I'm working a bit on a event which will come out in some time, a piece on the kind of humor that goes into both cyber attackers and defenders. Yep. Now, I won't go into too much detail on this, but Shiny Hunter's new profile picture is a cybersecurity staffer. He owns his own cybersecurity company or runs it. And he has previously had issues with who is believed to be Shiny Hunters when his company got hacked. So there's a little nod. We've talked about Lockbit, law enforcement,
the back and forth there.
So there is a lot of humor in this kind of thing, which, don't get me wrong, that is the most fun part of doing this job, is to see the kind of sassiness and the
I think there's a lot of fun parts of doing this job.
Well,
this
that's
might
true,
not seem fun to a lot of other people. But now, fun. So thank you for that. I had my glasses off and I completely blanked over Breach Forums. It's a very important thing to cover. So we're just talking about names and who's who, and attribution. Is Shiny Hunters individual? Are they a collective?
Yeah.
So one of the issues that, if you work in cybersecurity, you'll be familiar with this, but if you're unaware, hacking groups have silly names.
They do.
They really do. And the reason they have these silly names is every company that tracks them gives them a different name. So it's one group and it could have up to a dozen different names. I'm going to just talk about one.
Quickly, is it Microsoft, like this, for example, Microsoft, I think, are the one that apply to the Chinese state-sponsored hackers. It's Vault this, Vault this, Vault this.
Yeah. So they've got one word designates the country.
Yeah.
Another word designates the kind of activity they're engaging in. But it ends up, what it means is you end up with threat actors called gingham monkey.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I can't feel serious writing about something
And then someone
gingham.
else will call them something else.
Yeah, so here's the example. And CrowdStrike and Microsoft talked about this, but we'll get to what they're doing about it.
Yeah.
So Cozy Bear is an advanced persistent threat. They are backed by Russia. They are part of the Russian Foreign Intelligence Agency, the SVR. And here's what they're tracked as. Cozy Bear, that's what they're known as on Wikipedia.
Yep.
And how generally they're referred to. But here's how they're referred to by, well, Cozy Car, Cozy Duke, Dark Halo, The Dukes, Midnight Blizzard, that's probably Microsoft.
That probably is,
Nobelium, Office Monkeys, Stellar Particle, UNC 2452, which sounds like something out of Halo. And with I love this, tentative connection to Russian hacker group Yttrium. It's just like, how can you share threat intelligence when everybody has their own name and naming system and you end up with this word soup, which is practically meaningless? So what CrowdStrike and Microsoft are trying to do is, I think what they call it their Rosetta Stone of attribution. So far they've gone through their own books and correlated 80 threat groups and worked out, so CrowdStrike calls it X, Microsoft calls it Y, it's the one group, we're going to stick with that name. Yeah. They're trying to come up with a consistent naming convention that hopefully other threat intelligence firms and cybersecurity firms and analysts will dial into, and we can get rid of this absolute stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah, because it just makes tracking more difficult. If you're reading a report from another firm or someone who's gotten really, really good exclusive intelligence on a group, and then the name's different, you may not go look at that intelligence.
That it's something you've been working on anyway.
Even then, like I didn't realize Cozy Bear and Nobelium. I may have reported that they were the same on some story before.
The thing is,
but
it's
from
so
memory,
easy to...
they were two different groups.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those things that I'm not the only one who's going to have that issue.
Yeah.
You know, so this kind of standardization is long overdue.
Yeah. So the attribution of attacks matters, because the way this works in practice is an attack will be observed, it'll be investigated, and the analysts going over the data left behind forensically will go, oh, well, we feel with high confidence that this is by Cozy Bear.
Yeah.
But somebody else will go look at the same incident, and we feel with high confidence this is the Dukes.
Yeah.
Two people reading this will think they're two different groups.
Yeah.
When in fact it's the same group based upon the forensics.
And even when people do report it all as the same, they'll go, Cozy Bear, a.k.a.
This is what I do.
A, B, C, D, blah, 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 which is what, like,
it's a great way to get the word count up, I'll say that.
Yeah, it's a 700-word article with 3 sentences.
With 3 sentences just describing who these people are. And it's fascinating because, you know, CrowdStrike obviously has incredible visibility into this kind of activity. You know, they see it at the source.
Yeah.
Microsoft, similarly. Both these companies have worked with law enforcement in the past, in fact, in an ongoing manner for takedowns, research, what have you. But this, to me, this makes me really excited. One, I get one name to write about. And hopefully that's going to sound a silly one. But I think it's just going to make reporting for us a lot easier.
Yeah.
I think it's going to make research for analysts and researchers hopefully a lot clearer and easier.
Yeah.
And hopefully for the public who are interested in this to, again, make it clearer. And really that's exactly what we need with this. It's already a complex enough thing to try and attribute who's hacking who.
Yeah.
When you throw in, how many different names was that? Like 10? It just muddies the waters even more. So I applaud this. Like, I cannot say more enough how happy I am.
Already we see ransomware groups and other threat actors give themselves multiple names. We don't need to help them.
Or change their names.
Yeah. Hunters International to World Leagues.
Yeah.
We've got Black Cat and Alpha.
Alpha, yeah.
We don't need
and then you throw in the affiliates of these groups, like Scattered Spider.
Yeah.
And Scattered Spider is clearly not what they call themselves. That's the name given them to... I can't remember who gave it to them, but again, that's the name
that might be a Microsoft one. I don't know. I could be wrong on all of this, but
that's the thing. Making this kind of thing clearer is just better for everyone.
Yeah. Everybody wins.
Yeah. So hopefully other companies take up CrowdStrike and Microsoft on their work. Please do. It'll make our work a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I think that does it.
I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Cyber Uncut podcast, published by Cyber Daily. You can find us online at www.cyberdaily.au. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're all around the place. Head to our website, subscribe to our newsletter so you can get our happy faces in your inbox every morning. And I think I'll sign off from there, and we'll see you next week.
See you later.
Bye-bye.